Welcome to Living the Empowered Life podcast. I'm your host, Tamiko Lori Pugh, best-selling author, transformational strategist, life and business coach to purpose-driven women, and empowerment influencer. Affectionately called by many, the Empowering Diva. Each week, I'm bringing you inspirational conversations as well as actionable tips and strategies that move you forward in life and business. I believe that empowerment comes from within and can be achieved by honoring yourself, your values, and expressing your talents and gifts. Thank you so much for spending time with me today. Now let's jump into today's episode of Living the Empowered Life. Welcome to another episode of Living the Empowered Life podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Tamiko Lori Pugh, affectionately called by many the Empowering Diva. In today's episode, I'll be chatting with Bankroll Your Brilliance expert, Nicole Roberts-Jones. Nicole Roberts-Jones is uniquely gifted at one thing: drawing out what's best in you and helping you take your brilliance to the bank. A veteran of the entertainment industry, Nicole worked in talent management and casting before shifting her talents to help others bankroll their brilliance through her Brilliance Mastery Academy. All right, everyone. So you have already heard her amazing professional bio. So now let's go ahead and dive into our conversation with Bankroll Your Brilliance expert, Nicole Roberts-Jones. Hey, Nicole, welcome to Living the Empowered Life podcast.
Super excited to be here, Dr. Tamiko. Excited about our conversation.
I am so excited too. So a couple of things before I get started that I wanted to share with the audience. So I got connected with you a few years ago. I want to say it was like 2014. I'm not sure. You probably don't even remember this, but because you were busy on that day, but I was at Speaking Right to Make Millions
Okay.
with Lisa Nichols. I had just wrote my first book. And I'm like, oh, I'm going to go to this conference. I wanted to meet some other people in the industry. And let me tell you, you stood out. I was like, who is this cute, fabulous woman walking around with her little cute outfit, cute, natural curly hair? And you were just, your poise. And when you were on stage and the way you spoke, it just really resonated with me. So that was my first actual interaction with you at Speaking Right to Make Millions, not knowing that about 7 years later, I would be in the self-help in this industry, helping other women to empower them in life and business. And I would be connected with you and you would be on my podcast, girl. Yeah. So I'm excited.
I'll be unexcited. And what's so funny is when I saw your picture, I was like, I know her. Now I know exactly where I know you from. So I'm even more excited now.
Yes. So I met so many amazing people from that event, just so many people that I've been connected with over the past few years. And so just always grateful for those opportunities to connect and be able to share and share our messages and help other people to share their messages with women, because I think it's important that we continue to uplift one another and pour into each other.
Yeah, because we don't do it alone. So yeah, we have to.
Yes, absolutely. And the other thing is, y'all, she is one of my girlfriends. So I love it when I meet other women who are rocking their naturals.
Yes. And I would tell you, when I started, and somebody might identify with this, hadn't seen my curly hair in so long. I was scared. I was like, who is it? Gonna be cute? Yeah.
And then we get caught up, and this is, is actually going to kind of take us into where we're going with our conversation. But I used to get so caught up with having this perfect image. When I first wrote my first book and I first started speaking, I had this image like, oh, I got to have on the perfect tailored pantsuit and my hair is straightened to perfection. And I wasn't being authentic at the end of the day. I wasn't being the authentic person that Tamiko was called to be, and my audience, they could recognize it. But I think once I started being a little bit more authentic, being who I was and being the person God called me to be, that's when the audience started to open up and things started to happen. And I'm not sure if you can kind of relate to that, but
for sure,
women of color, we think we have to go a little extra, straighten our hair and all that, all that stuff.
Totally. Well, first of all, I'm from South Central LA. So if my neighborhood had its choice and who I would be, my life should be defined by jail, drugs, and drive-by shootings. There's
Mm.
no way I should have a master's degree. There's no way I should be the CEO of a multiple six-figure company. There's no way that I should have been an adjunct professor at one, let alone two prestigious universities. I keep going on. So the point I'm making is the first thing I realized is when I let go of perception, as Ayala Mazan called it, OPP, other people's perception. I was like, oh, I got to use that, right? And that's when I started caring about my hair. And truth be told, I was traveling so much. I was like, you know what? Me and this straightening thing for 3 hours, because it took me an hour to dry my hair straight. I mean, yeah, dry it, just to dry it. Then an hour to get it straight. Then an hour. Yeah, I'm not doing that. Right. So I
Yes,
stopped
yes.
caring. And that gave me such freedom to be unapologetically me.
Unapologetic. Absolutely. And that's what I love. That's what I love. And the crazy thing is, the interesting thing is that's why I was attracted to your message, because you were so authentic. And I was like, wow, I can identify with her.
Yeah, but I'll tell you, I spent years not being authentic, and I love that you talked about being perfect because I had this. First of all, let me tell y'all, I'm transparent. So I grew up in an abusive household. So
Mm-hmm.
anybody that's ever touched any kind of abuse, you know that you've got to make everything look so perfect. So I have
Mm-hmm.
perfectionism on steroids, right? So I had to have the perfect hair, the perfect outfit. And now part of that, I'm a shopaholic. Let me admit that, but I had to have the perfect everything, right? And so because the way I grew up and I didn't know anything different until I started really looking at things around me. And that's when everything started changing.
Yes, yes. I love that. I like that OPP too. The other
Yeah.
people's perception.
Yeah, I'm gonna stop
Yeah.
giving Ayana credit. I'm gonna say it two more times,
Yeah.
give her credit, then I'm gonna just start saying it.
Right, right. So so you have the Bankroll Your Brilliance, and your
Mm-hmm.
brand, you really focus on teaching women how to align their purpose with their paychecks and
Yeah,
bankroll their brilliance. So I
yeah.
love that, aligning purpose with their paychecks.
Mm-hmm.
I actually, ironically, did a video this morning. The three pillars that living the empowered life focuses on is your passion, your purpose, and profit. And so
Mm.
when we talk about teaching women how to align their purpose with their paychecks, can you share a little bit about what that means for you?
Sure. So I call this finding your fierce, right? Fierce as in Sasha Fierce. So let me go
Yes.
ahead and admit that I've been doing this for 28 years. Every time I say that, I'm like, God, how old are you? But this year marks 28. And I'm saying that because maybe about 10 years ago. Now, here's the thing. When God drops something in my spirit, I don't realize I'm going to have this big epiphany. So I don't write it down till it's too late. And then I forget to write the date. So I think it was 10 years ago. I was watching Beyonce and I was hating on her a whole lot. I would say a
Mm.
little bit, but I'd be lying. Because if I could sing, baby, you need to know. Because I could dance, but I cannot sing. Okay. So
Hey.
she'd have some competition if I could sing. Okay. So I was watching her having a full-on jealous moment, and what dropped in my spirit is you have fears too. And I think to
Yes.
myself, this is not you, God, talking to me while I'm watching Beyonce. This can't be you, right? But as soon as I let that go, what flooded in my mind is this, y'all. Now we all know this, but Beyonce created Sasha Fierce at a time when God was calling her to be bigger in her gift, to expand her territory. So it's one thing to know you have a gift, it's another thing to play in it full out. Now, she
Mm.
had been in a group for 10 years called Destiny's Child. Y'all remember that. And literally, it took them, well, she had been in it longer than 10 years, but it took them 10 years to get a music deal, to actually get an album out. So from 9 to 19, every single day practicing, and getting turned down and turned down and turned down and turned down. And I'm telling you that. Plus, then they get a record deal and two members leave. Then they find two new ones and one of those members leave. So out of all of that, y'all, she created the song Survivor. If you've never read the words, don't start singing it. Go look up the lyrics and read the lyrics, because she says, listen, I'm a survivor. I'm not going to give up. Now sharing all of that with you because after all of that stuff they went through, she then has this inkling in her to go solo, which I'm sure had to scare her. And then after everything she'd been through, it's like, what, Lord, really? Right? Now, I don't know this. I'm speculating. So what she did was she conjured up this alter ego called Sasha Fierce, because again, she'd been on stage with two other women her whole career. And now in order for her to expand her territory and go after a new level of her gift, she had to stand on stage alone. So then what I started thinking about is this: what if I unapologetically stood in my full power? What if I stopped caring about what other people had to think and started being the woman God called me to be? That is when that whole fierce notion came out. And so there's 4 steps, if you don't mind me sharing real quickly.
Yes, that was
In the
my next
fierce,
question. What are the steps to finding your fears?
yes. So I love it because what we share correlates. So number one, it's really a purpose, but there's 2 pieces that make up your purpose. The first thing is passion. Like, what do you love that you could do hour upon hour upon hour and never even think to get a paycheck? The second is, what are you proficient in? Like, what are you really, really great at? The interesting piece is, most of us overlook our proficiency. We overlook it because it's easy. It's second nature for you. You may say things like, "Oh, can't everybody do that?" No. Or there are other people that do it, but nobody does it like you, right? So if I give you an example, in the first 2 areas, everybody just about on the planet has read Becoming by Michelle
Mm-hmm.
Obama, right? And if you haven't read it, you've heard of it. Well, somewhere around chapter 10, Michelle Obama talks about the fact that she had matriculated through law school, gone through this whole career. She was great at it, up for being a partner, and then realized that she hated it. So I want you to get that if it's your purpose, you will love it and you'll be good at it. You can't be one without the other. Okay. Matter of fact, I told that story, Dr. Tamiko, at an event, and someone said, "Well, do you think that Michelle Obama going to law school was a waste?" First of all, the Bible verse says all things work together for the good, not a couple,
Yes, yes,
not a
that's my
few.
scripture.
Right, but all. So right. So would do you think she'd be a phenomenal first lady without having gone to law school? No, that was preparing her. She just didn't know it. And anyway, I can go on and on about that. Step 3. So one is passion, 2 is proficiency. Those 2 have to correlate. Okay, or else it's not your
Mm-hmm.
purpose. Number 3 is problem. What problem does it solve? Because ultimately it's not for you. What's interesting is most people don't realize that God put you here on assignment. An assignment is not just for people in the pulpit. It's not just for the pastor that, what have you. Every single one of us is assigned. That's why we have the DNA, the distinct natural ability makeup that we have, so that we can serve all the people that our gift is the answer to. So what problem does it solve? And actually, I can say problem and people is number 3, right? Because you're not everybody's answer, but you got
Mm-hmm.
to be clear on who you are the answer for. And then ultimately, for my entrepreneurs, now there's 2 different ways you can look at it. For my entrepreneurs, of course, it's profit, because when you are the answer to a group of people, God's gift back to you is it. What's the saying? Your gift makes room for you. It's called
Yes.
a paycheck. But if you're not an entrepreneur, it's the position you play at work, because ultimately, even in a corporation, that corporation was created because it's an answer to a problem. Hello, step 3 again. So your role in the system that is your corporation helps to create that answer. As an entrepreneur, you are the answer to a group of people. If you're doing things based on sales and not serving, you're doing it for the wrong reason, which is a whole nother conversation. But literally, those are the 4 steps: passion, proficiency, problem, and then profit.
I love this. I love it. I absolutely love everything about this. Passion, proficient, problem, and profit. And I think oftentimes we don't even realize that. So you said it. You said we are here on assignment. And the other thing we don't realize is that we have the answer to someone's problem,
Yep.
right? Our story, our experience, our expertise, all of that stuff packaged up is the answer to somebody's problem.
And that's why they don't need you perfect. It's the imperfect pieces that allows them to see you as their answer. So if I give an example, I've been doing this again 28 years. So I always tell the story of the fact that I didn't, for the first 17 years, I never made more than $13,000. This is a quick fast story, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and then of course I hired a coach. I started making 6 figures in 6 months, but I'm sharing that with you because my husband asked me one day, "When are you going to stop telling that story?" I said, "Why? Are you embarrassed?" And I started laughing. I said, "Never." Because somebody needs to know that I was in struggle. Somebody needs to know that I had no clue. Somebody needs to know that I was brilliant, but I was in breakdown. Somebody needs to know, because that's where they are. And when I am willing to show them that I too was there, but I'm no longer there, and I can now walk you through how to get where I am, it shifts everything.
Yes, it really does. And I think being transparent and open and being honest with people, it
Mm-hmm.
actually gives them hope when we get to share our stories and how we overcame and how we got to where we are. It breathes hope
Yep.
into those people that are going through something similar.
Yep, that's called empowered. Look, we on the Empowered Woman podcast, right?
Absolutely.
So
Yes.
that's how
I
you empower the
mean,
next group behind you, because literally I am just 10 steps ahead of most people that I meet on the road. entrepreneurs, that is, right? Because somebody's 10 steps ahead of me in something else, maybe weight loss, maybe, some other things. Like I don't have enough time for me to list all the things you're probably ahead of me in. But here's the thing. I need to understand that I am perfectly imperfect. As soon as I'm perfect, hopefully I'll be sitting next to Jesus because I'll be
All
gone.
right now.
Right. So, but all of us are perfectly imperfect, but our inability to share it is what will keep you from all that's possible for you.
Girl, this is good. This is good. You mentioned having a coach, hiring a coach, and then being able to make those multiple six figures. Can you please talk or speak to the point of the importance of having mentorship or a coach,
Yes.
or how important that is?
So let me tell you first the difference between a mentor and a coach, because I think this is such a misnomer. And the number of people that I get an email and they ask me to be their mentor, I'm like, you don't want a mentor, you want a coach. Be clear. So a mentor is someone that just fits you in when they can. Usually you have a pre-existing relationship, because if I'm going to fit you in 20 minutes here, 5 minutes there, that means that I already know you and I already know your business. I'm not meeting you. A coach is someone you have a contractual relationship with, that you say we're going to be once a week or once every other week or once a month. And we have a predictable result we're working toward, right? Big difference. Because ultimately, if I'm going to be your mentor, I would have had to coach you first, because then I know your business. So when you ask me questions, it's irresponsible for me to think I can mentor you and a 15-minute conversation is going to help you. It's not. It just isn't, right? So for me, I'll tell you, at the time when my business was struggling, y'all. So let me just paint the picture so you understand that I was doing great things in the world. My business was struggling. Okay. So back then, this was in 2010. I started this in 1993. So 17 years in, I had a for-profit and a nonprofit back then. And my nonprofit, working with African-American teenage girls, I had 10 chapters in 10 churches. It was faith-based in 10 cities throughout the country. And we were growing by leaps and bounds. In my for-profit, coaching women to align their purpose with their paycheck, or now what I call Bankroll their Brilliance. I had a maxed out coaching client roster, meaning I couldn't take another client. So I thought, okay, I'll write a book so I can give women the principles and it could be a fundraiser for my nonprofit. But when that book came out, I started getting invitations to speak all over the country. So I'm telling you, I was like, yes, this is exactly why I know God called me to do this work. I was doing it. But again, I was only making $13,000 a year. So y'all know I had a daytime job, because you can't eat on $13,000 a year. Right. And my daytime job, I was an adjunct professor at Boston University. So here's why I'm telling you the story is I remember this like it was yesterday. It was November 7th, 2010. Another speaking weekend. And again, I loved everything I was doing, by the way. I didn't hate any of it and I was good at it. So, but this little $13,000, yeah, wasn't cutting it. So November 7th was a Sunday night. I had just gotten home from another speaking weekend. My class I taught at Boston University was at 8 a.m. on Monday morning. I had not looked at the syllabus. I don't know if I read the books I told my students to read. I had no outline. And I remember sitting on my couch, done, tired. And I said, God, I can't do this. I can't do this like this anymore. And I remember crying because I was just like, I was worn out. But at the same time, I felt in conflict because I knew this was my purpose. And so literally I said, God, if this is really you, you better show me something. And I'm sassy with like that because he made me, he knows I'm sassy, right? So I said, look, I'm done. If this is really my purpose, you better help me. So to make a long story short, I went on a bunch of free things. Back then there was no podcast, but I was on like a webinar and through a series of events, I met a coach. I hired that coach, but I want you to get, she cost $30,000. I couldn't afford it. But I couldn't afford not to do it. I said, okay, God, I'm going to risk it all to gain it. I'm going to give it my all. In my first coaching session, she showed me, and I'm telling you this long story because I want you guys to get this. Many of us, it's not that your brilliance is lacking. Oh, God gave you a gift. It's present. But what you do with your gift is what's missing. And so for me, adjunct professor, I had taught at USC for almost 5 years, moved to Boston, taught at Boston University. I had a consulting practice. I went and worked with heads of state and I've worked with celebrities and small business owners developing programs. And here's what my coach said to me after she reminded me of all that. She said, baby, you don't have any programs in your own business. Duh. You really, literally, there are blind spots to who you be. Because you are you on autopilot. Dr. Tamiko, if you woke up this morning and said, I feel like being Nicole today, it wouldn't work. Just like if I woke up and said, today, I'm going to be Dr. Tamiko. Yeah, I can try really, really hard. Right. Yeah, and it would not work. Just like, dare I say, if Oprah said, I'm going to be Nicole Roberts-Jones. Yeah, it wouldn't work. Dare I use that example? But seriously. And so because of that, there are things intrinsic to you. And so all she did was shine a light. I'm going to tell you that day, that moment, I went back to my room because I was with her at an event. I went back to my room. I developed a program. That first program in 2 days made $10,000. I went in 6 months from 10,000 in that one program to over 200,000. And I've been growing by leaps and bounds. And all I did was one, I got clear on my fears because I wasn't clear.
Yes.
And then I did something that I now do with my clients, which is create a blueprint from it. Now, here's why I'm telling you that is I believe God had me go through that 17-year journey. If any of y'all know the Bible like I do, the children of Israel went down around a mountain for 40 years, that same mountain. I really felt like God let me stay stuck that long. So I'd be so passionate with every woman that I get to work with that it doesn't even take you 17 months to get it.
Girl, that is.
So that's who you met as speaker, right, girl? Because I was on fire because I was 2 or 3 years after that epiphany. And I started seeing how things shifted overnight just by me being unapologetically me and getting clear on the gift and who I was meant to serve.
I love this. Being unapologetically me and being clear on your gift. As you were speaking, I felt like you were actually telling a little bit of my story. We have a few things in common. You know, I started off with a nonprofit. I still have it, Still Staying Alliance. We focus on domestic violence awareness, advocacy, and prevention. That's my story. I'm a domestic violence survivor.
Oh, so you know my story, girl. Yes, but I was a child.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's a whole nother conversation anyway.
I launched the nonprofit because of that, you know, my experience of wanting to help other women. And then I wrote the book about it because I'm like, well, I'm not really making money off of this. This is my philanthropy work. This is what I do to give back. Wrote a book, started getting speaking engagements. And, you know, what to charge. Let me tell you, one time. I'm gonna move on with our conversation.
Somebody needs it. This is good.
I created this amazing program, the 10 Commandments of Self-Love. Why I charge $10 for an in-person program? It cost me about $50 per person to actually prepare the workbook and all the stuff. I charged $10. This was back in 2011, I think it was. When I think back on that, what I charged $10 for back then is $1,000 now.
Like, and can I tell you, we all make that mistake. That's what I said. Somebody needs this because part of that, dare I say, is that you didn't know your worth. And I can say that because that was me too. That's why I wasn't making any money in my business because I didn't know my worth. And by the way, I had an online program that had zero sales, because I didn't know how to position my gift in the proper way too. So many women go through that. So we're sisters in it, girl, because I was doing the same thing.
You're positioning our gift. One last thing, this guy reached out to me from Charlotte, North Carolina. I live in Atlanta. Asking me how much it would cost for them to bring me to Charlotte to talk about my book, which was Wounds to Wisdom, 5 Steps to Turn Your Wounds into Wisdom. I said $125. The event host was like, that $125? $125?
He was like, okay, done, right?
So when I think back on stuff like that, that's why
I got to tell you, Gordon, let me tell you, I just have to tell you this story. So listen, when I told you I had that coach, I went through this whole epiphany. One of them was she told me I needed to start charging what I was worth. So she told me to charge back then $1,500. So I was like, how much? Because listen, when someone would call me, Dr. Tamiko, I would say, okay, I wouldn't charge them anything. And I fly myself to your event. Right. But I didn't know. I'm thinking this is my ministry. I'm clear. My business is still my ministry. But here's the thing. God began to show me struggle and service should never coexist. Why would I give you a gift and want you to struggle? Does that sound like a father that loves his child? No. So after I had that whole epiphany, struggle and service, and then he reminded me of John 10:10, which I'll tell you that in a minute. But I had that coaching session with my coach. I hung up the phone. I called my girlfriend as a pastor. She said, girl, don't you know, how do you think I get paid? I get an honorarium every time I go speak. What? So then maybe a week later, I get a call from a church. It was the first lady of a church in Memphis. And I'm scared to death because I'm like, oh, Lord, now I got to do this coaching thing, right? So she said, how much do you charge? And I said, my little $1,500. Mind you, I had gotten paid $0 before that moment. And she said, okay. I was thinking to myself, am I being punked? This ain't real, right? So I hushed. Then she says, do you want to stay at the Hilton or the Embassy Suites? I said, Jesus, do you have a preferred airline?
That's what I'm talking about.
I really realized I had been holding up my own blessings. So listen, John 10:10 says, now we hear this, we know this part. I have come that you have life and have it more abundantly. Jesus said that. But here's a piece we forget. That same Bible verse, the first part says, the enemy comes to kill, to steal, and to destroy. Listen, when I'm standing in my gift, how many women I bless? He doesn't want that. See, God created us to have dominion. Go read Genesis 128. I don't have time to teach all of it, but listen, I want y'all to get this. So the enemy is going to try to keep you from your dominion. Your dominion is your purpose. It's the people that need you. When you serve in that, can you imagine what this world would be like? So for me, part of the reason I struggled so long was that was the enemy, and I was allowing him. Every time you second guess your gift, I'm saying it to you, but this is me as well. You are letting him still kill and destroy. Every time you don't charge what you're worth. Because listen, how you gonna eat and pay your bills if you're not charging what you're worth? Hello, still kill and destroy because you can't serve from an empty cup. I can go on and on, but it was such an awakening for me that baby, yeah, I'm clear. I do give back now. I still do give back, but I'm clear this is give back because it's either teenage girls or college students. But other than that, yeah, no more, no more.
You just literally broke that verse down the way I have never even heard it.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Because it's backwards. So if you read the other parts, because listen, the part we get excited about is I've come to for you to live abundantly. So we stuck on the abundantly, but we don't really realize. I always say that God was. This is me. No preacher has said this. So if y'all gonna talk about anybody, talk about me. I always say that God was trying to show the devil and prove a point. Like, oh, I'm gonna make the world. I'm gonna let all my people come on, and you ain't gonna be able to take none of them. Watch. Right? Because keep in mind, the devil was an angel, and he got kicked out because he was acting a fool, right? So God said, "Oh, you want to act a complete fool? Let me recreate this world and show you something," right? So God started, let there be light. He started creating us, and again, He gave us dominion, but He also gave us free will. So we get to choose, and His desire is that we don't let the enemy have dominion. Is that we do choose to live in alignment with who He created us to be. The question is, are you going to do the work to get to it, or were you living good enough?
Yeah, we are talking to the Bankroll, your Brilliance expert, Nicole Roberts-Jones, and she is breaking it down. She is breaking it down. Nicole, so I know we all have a journey. You kind of shared a little bit of your journey, but tell us a little bit of how did you get into the personal development or coaching industry?
I love this question. So I actually worked in entertainment.
Okay.
I love that God always matriculates you. So, and I have to say this because somebody might be going through this too. So, we start the school system and we know we start kindergarten, then we know we're going to elementary, then we know we're going to junior high. So it's always expected, even though I don't know about y'all, but every level I was scared. Like junior high, I was high school, I was like scared for the first moment because it's new. Well, what we don't realize is God does the same thing in our lives. So I started in the entertainment industry. My undergraduate degrees, TV and film, loved every single minute of it. But at the same time, I felt like something was missing. And so I didn't know what that was. And again, I love my job. So I'm like, what's wrong with you? So every time I tried to talk to one of my girlfriends, they kept saying, didn't you go to this red carpet event? And do you realize a TV show you work on? And so I was feeling dazed and confused, Dr. Tamiko, to be honest with you. And I prayed about it in silence and prayed about it in silence. I was like, okay, Lord, well, at some point, I guess I'm gonna figure out what this thing is I feel. And what happened is one of my good girlfriends, this was right after the LA riots, invited me to volunteer at a youth program at our church. Those of you that are familiar, it's called a youth lock-in. They lock the doors of the church and we spend the night. You do programs all night. You don't sleep either. But anyway, as I started working with young women that night, I was like, oh my God, whatever this thing is that I'm doing, mind you, I had never heard of coaching. I don't even think it was out yet. But their eyes were lighting up. And as their eyes lit up, my heart lit up. And I realized, oh my God, this is it. So that began my quest to figure out what this is. And I started going to the library. That's how y'all know how old I am, that I had to go to the library because there was no internet, by the way, when I was had this moment. And so I really, to be honest with you, I started a quest. And when I went to the library, I thought I was a social worker. I'm telling you all the truth, right? Because I thought I was a caseworker. I thought what I was doing was case management. So I went and got a master's degree in social work. Sitting in those classes, what I did not realize, girl, God, look, all things work together. Not a few, I'm saying it again, not a couple. Sitting in my classes, I realized they had a concentration called COPA back then. Now it's called Macro. COPA, Community Organizing, Planning, Administration. My expertise is program development. What did I do in entertainment? Casting and producing. What do I do now? I produce my clients. Hello. So it's really program development. So that's really, it took me years to figure out because I didn't know what coaching was, to be honest with you. One of my high school girls, that was a nonprofit that one night became a program at my church, became a national nonprofit. One of my girls who was grown in 1995 sent me an article and said, you're my coach. That's how I got into this. So I didn't even know what it was, but I was committed to figure it out.
Wow. I mean, that's a powerful story. And it's almost I have another good friend, Sherry Riley.
Yeah, I know Sherry.
Story.
Mm-hmm.
entertainment industry was.
Yep. And we laughed about that. We met because we both had
Yes.
that. Mm-hmm.
Very, very similar story. So at the end of the day, it's about fulfillment. Like we can
Yeah.
have these amazing careers, but there's something in us that's not fulfilled. And
But
you,
even, can I tell you, even when I look back at entertainment, my very last job, I worked in management. One of my clients called me his coach. So I was doing the same thing I'm doing now. I've been doing it for years. I just never stopped long enough to get clear on it until I started going in programs and and I hired a coach. But I've been doing this same thing for 28 years, even when I worked in entertainment.
coaching, the whole,
Mm-hmm.
and it wasn't even called coaching back then.
Nope. Nope.
Yeah. The whole, wow. Actually, this is amazing. So, we have learned how to find our fears and bankroll our brilliance. And one of the things you mentioned was to stand in your full power. If I don't remember anything from today, it would be to stand in my full power. Yes,
Yeah.
we're talking to the Living the Empowered Life audience, but I'm always grateful when I can pull something out of a conversation like this, that I can implement in my own personal life.
Yeah. Yeah.
One of the things I think sometimes that we struggle with is standing in our full power and
Mm-hmm.
being who God has created us to be. So I thank you for that piece right there alone.
Mm-hmm. And even as you're saying, being the empowered life, what's coming in my mind is a superhero with a cape on, right? So just imagine the difference between Clark Kent and Superman. Now, I use that example because, when I say Wonder Woman and Diana Prince, nobody knows who Diana Prince is. But when he's Clark Kent, he's all of himself. When he's Superman, he's a part of himself.
Yes, yes, yes.
Mm-hmm.
That's good. I love that. I love that analogy.
Yeah.
Well, we are on Living the Empowered Life podcast, and I would be remiss if I didn't ask you, what does it mean to Nicole Roberts Jones to live an empowered life?
Is to live, when you say empowered, the word power, it makes me think of I've got to stay plugged in and powered up to my creator and be clear and uncompromising with my marching orders, my assignment from him. So empowered means to me to stay on course, to not flinch, right? To not let the enemy steal, kill, and destroy. to live a life so that when I die and get to go meet God face to face, I want him to say, "Girl, you did it. Job well done. I'm proud of you." I don't want him to say, "Go back. You ain't done yet. You can do none of it." Right. So that's really my empowerment, is to be on mission, on purpose, for a purpose every single day.
I love that. On purpose for a purpose. Nicole, do you have any upcoming initiatives or any events you want to share with us that you'd like for us to support?
Sure. So I would love to give the women that are not sure where they are in the journey. I have a free assessment you can take. It's called Brilliance Roadmap Quiz.com. And what it does is it tells you where you are in your journey, asks you a couple questions, tells you where you are, and then it gives you another 5 days of free activation. And I created that quiz because when I was stuck, it took me 17 years also because I didn't know where to go. I didn't know who to ask, and I didn't even know what to ask. So literally, I want to stand in the gap for every woman that knows, like they know that they have this purpose bubbling inside them, but don't know where to start. So again, it's Brilliance Roadmap Quiz.com.
You heard it, brillianceroadmapquiz.com. Go ahead and grab that free assessment. It took her 17 years. She's helping
Yeah.
you so that you don't have to take 17 years to get where you're called to be.
Yep. Yep. And even if you already started your business, still take the assessment. It will bless you because it'll help you with where you are.
Thank you
really
for
will.
that. Thank you for
Mhm.
that. So before we close out, you've shared a lot of nuggets, some powerful information. I just want to make sure you got everything out. Do you have a final thought that you want to share before we close out?
The only thing I really want to impart to the ladies that are listening is, God gave us and really invested such phenomenal gifts and talents in each of us. My question to you is, what's God's return on his investment in you?
Mm. What's God's return on his investment to you?
Mm-hmm.
Thank
Yep.
you so much, Nicole. Thank you for joining us today. Thank you for sharing your expertise and all of your brilliance. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you for having me. This was actually fun. It went by really fast.
Thank you. Thank you for tuning in to another empowering episode of Living the Empowered Life podcast. I hope that you enjoyed my conversation with Bankroll Your Brilliance expert, Nicole Roberts Jones, and that you were able to draw some inspiration as you continue your journey of living an empowered life. And remember, Always follow your passion, for it will lead to your purpose. Ladies, it's time to identify and live your life purpose. It's time to live life according to your values. It's time to set goals that move you forward in life and business. It's time to unleash your confidence. It's time to fearlessly walk in your authentic power. Ladies, it's time to live the empowered life.